Republicans running for governor are now openly clashing.
Yeah, and the clash is pulling the 2020 election back into the spotlight after the Secretary of State refused to testify before a Senate ethics panel.
Atlanta News First reporter Abby Casores is live at the state capitol. And Abby, you were in the room during that hearing. What all happened?
Well, the man that lawmakers wanted to hear from the most never showed. The Senate Ethics Committee met. They had called on Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger to testify, but he did not attend. This fight all taking place within the Republican Party between two GOP hopefuls. Lieutenant Governor Burt Jones accusing Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger of failures in election oversight. It centers on Fulton County's admission that hundreds of thousands of ballot tabulator tapes from 2020 were not properly signed, a violation of state rules. Jones says that election should never have been certified. At the same time, State Senator Randy Robertson pushing a resolution calling on Raffensperger to turn over Georgia's full voter roll to the Justice Department. Lawmakers say they wanted Raffensperger here to answer questions publicly.
We all work for the people, and we need to be able to answer to the people.
But in a letter to committee chairman Sam Watson, who you just heard from, Raffensperger told and warned them that he would not appear. He explained that the DOJ's request requires releasing sensitive voter information, including social security numbers, driver's license data, which he says is illegal under Georgia's law.
I always do my job, always follow the Constitution. And if they want to play politics while they're in session, that's up to them. But at the end of the day, voters are going to look at who's actually working to protect them.
What happens next is still an open question. Raffensperger could be compelled to testify. This could end up within the court system. We still don't know just yet how it will play out. The meeting is over, but it doesn't seem like this fight is over just yet. Live at the state capitol, Abby Casores, Atlanta News First.